Ladies and gentlemen, alright, it's that time again for what I like to call Reading with Shel. Where the Sidewalk is a very dear and special book to me, as I'm sure it is to a lot of people out there. Tonight I'd like to start off with, well, invitation. If you are a dreamer, come in. If you are a dreamer, a wisher, a liar, a hoper, a prayer, a magic bean buyer, if you're a pretender, come sit by my fire, for we have flax, golden tales to spin. Come in, come in. This next one has always been kind of fun for me to read since I was a little wee lad. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Went for a ride in a flying shoe. Hooray, what fun, it's time we flew. Said ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle was captain and Pickle was crew, and Tickle served coffee and mulligan stew. As higher and higher and higher they flew, ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Over the sun and beyond the blue. Hold on, stay in, I hope we do. Cried ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Never returned to the world they knew, and nobody knows what happened to dear ickle me, pickle me, tickle me too. Ah, that one's always so fun. Now, I never liked to take the trash out. It always bored me. Until one day I read this story about a little girl much like myself. You see, Sarah, Cynthia, Sylvia Stout would not take the garbage out. She'd scour the pots and scrape the pans, candy the yams and spice the hams. And though her daddy would scream and shout, she simply would not take the garbage out. And so it piled up to the ceilings, coffee grounds and potato peelings, brown bananas, rotten peas, chunks of sour cottage cheese. It filled the can, it covered the floor, it cracked the window and blocked the door. With bacon rinds and chicken bones and drippy ends of ice cream cones, prunes pits, peach pits, orange peel, gobbly glumps of cold oatmeal, pizza crust and withered greens, soggy beans and tangerines, crusts of black burnt butter toast, grizzly bits of beefy roast. The garbage rolled on down the hall and raised a roof, it broke a wall. Greasy napkins, cookie crumbs, globs of gooey bubble gum, cellophane from green bologna, rubbery blubbery macaroni, peanut butter caked and dry, curdled milk and crusts of pie, moldy melons, dried up mustard, eggshells mixed with lemon custard, cold french fries and rancid meat, yellow lumps of cream of wheat. At last the garbage reached so high that finally it touched the sky. And all the neighbors moved away and none of her friends would come and play. And finally Sarah Cynthia Stout said, "Okay, I'll take the garbage out." But then of course it was too late. The garbage reached across the state, from New York to the Golden Gate, and there in the garbage she did hate. Poor Sarah met an awful fate that I cannot right now relate, because the hour is much too late. But children, remember Sarah Stout, and always, please always, take the garbage out. Now, this one, my little man, every time I think of him not wanting to take a shower, I must remind him of a man I once knew named Dirty Dan, the dirtiest man in the world. Oh, and Dirty Dan, the world's dirtiest man, I've never taken a shower. I can't see my shirt, it's so covered with dirt, and my ears have enough to grow flowers. But the water is either a little too hot, or else it's a little too cold. I'm musty and dusty and patchy and scratchy and mangy and covered with mold. But the water is always a little too hot, or else it's a little too cold. I live in a pen with 5 hogs and a hen, and 3 squizzly lizards to creep in my bed, and they itch as I squirm and I twitch in this cruddy old sheets that I sleep in. If you look down my throat with a flashlight, you'd note that my insides are coated with rust. I creak when I walk and I squeak when I talk, and each time I sneeze my nose, I blow dust. The thought of a towel and some soap makes me howl, and when people have something to tell me, they don't come and tell it. They stand back and yell it. I think they are afraid they might smell me. The bedbugs, they leap on me and sing me to sleep, and the garbage flies buzz me awake. They're the best friends I found, and I fear they might drown, so I never go near a lake. Each evening at 9, I sit down to dine with the termites who live in my chair, and I joke with the bats and have intimate chats with the cooties who crawl in my hair. I'd brighten my life if I just found a wife, but I fear that never will be, until I can find a girl gentle and kind, with a beautiful face and a sensitive mind, who sparkles and twinkles and glistens and shines, and who's almost as dirty as me. We come across one that I know is very dear to my little man Blue. Pirate Captain Jim. "Walk the plank," says Pirate Jim. "But Pirate Jim, I cannot swim." "Then you must steer us through the gale." "But Captain Jim, I cannot sail." "Then down with the galley slaves you go." "But Captain Jim, I cannot row." "Then you must be the pirate's clerk." "But Captain Jim, I cannot work." "Then a pirate captain you must be." "Thank you, Jim," says Captain Me. I'd like to close this out with one that always seems to be suiting, which is kind of sad. Because you think after so many years of being on this planet, and the word of the king, Rodney King, can't we all just get along? The generals. Say General Clay to General Gore, "Oh, must we fight this silly war? To kill and die is such a bore." "I agree," says General Gore. Said General Gore to General Clay, "We could just go to the beach today and have some ice cream on the way." "A grand idea," says General Clay. Says General Clay to General Gore, "We'll build sand castles on the shore," says General Gore. "We'll splash and play." "Let's leave right now," says General Clay. Said General Gore to General Clay, "But if the sea is closed today, what if the sand's been blown away?" "A dreadful thought," says General Clay. Said General Gore to General Clay, "I've always feared the ocean spray, and we may drown." "It's true we may. It chills my blood," said General Clay. Said General Clay to General Gore, "My bathing suit is slightly torn. We'd better go on with our war." "I quite agree," says General Gore. Then General Clay charged General Gore as bullets flew and cannons roared, and now at last there is no more of General Clay or General Gore. Now, in fashion of children all over the world, namely once again my son. As I close the book, he says, "Please, Daddy, one more. Just one more." And so, as with him, I will do with you. I will just simply open it up, and whatever we choose is what we choose. Peanut butter sandwich. I'll sing you a poem of a silly young king who played with the world at the end of a string, but he only loved one single thing, and that was just a peanut butter sandwich. His spectre in his royal gowns, his regal throne and golden crowns were brown and sticky from the mounds and drippings from each peanut butter sandwich. His subjects were all silly fools, for he had passed a royal rule that all that they could learn in school was how to make a peanut butter sandwich. He would not eat his sovereign steak, he scorned his soup and kingly cake, and told his courtly cook to bake an extra sticky peanut butter sandwich. And then one day he took a bite and started chewing with delight, but found his mouth was stuck quite tight from that last bite of peanut butter sandwich. His brother pulled, his sister pried, the wizard pushed, his mother cried, "My boy's committed suicide from eating his last peanut butter sandwich." The dentist came in the royal dock. The royal plumber banged and knocked, but still those jaws stayed tightly locked. Oh, darn that sticky peanut butter sandwich.